Picture this. You're flying over the desert of southern Peru, staring down at what looks like a massive alien runway carved into the earth below. Lines stretch for miles in perfectly straight formations, while enormous figures of spiders, monkeys, and mysterious beings stare back up at you from the barren ground. Your mind races with questions that have haunted humanity for nearly a century. Who created these? How did they do it? And most importantly, why? Welcome to the mystery of the Nazca Lines, where ancient engineering meets modern confusion, and where every answer only leads to deeper questions. I'm about to take you on a journey that will challenge everything you think you know about ancient civilizations, extraterrestrial contact, and the true capabilities of our ancestors. But before we dive into this rabbit hole, let me tell you something that will blow your mind. Just this year, artificial intelligence has revolutionized our understanding of these ancient mysteries. In 6 months, AI discovered more new Nazca geoglyphs than humans found in nearly a century of searching. We're talking about 303 brand new figures that had been hiding in plain sight for over 2,000 years. And among these discoveries, a 72-foot-long killer whale wielding a knife, carved with precision that would challenge modern engineers. This isn't just about pretty pictures in the desert anymore. We're looking at evidence of a civilization so advanced, so mysterious, that some people genuinely believe only extraterrestrial intervention could explain what we're seeing. Others argue we're witnessing the greatest engineering feat of the ancient Americas, created by a lost civilization whose capabilities we've completely underestimated. By the end of this video, you'll understand why the Nazca Lines have sparked more controversy than almost any other archaeological discovery in human history. You'll see the evidence that both supports and destroys the ancient alien theory. And you'll discover recent findings that are forcing archaeologists to completely rewrite the story of what ancient peoples were actually capable of achieving. So, buckle up, because we're about to explore one of the most mind-bending mysteries on Earth. And I promise you, after seeing what I'm about to show you, you'll never look at ancient history the same way again. The Nazca Desert of southern Peru is one of the most inhospitable places on Earth. This barren landscape receives less than 20 minutes of rain per entire year, making it one of the driest non-polar deserts on the planet. The ground is so parched that footprints left by researchers decades ago are still visible today, preserved like photographs in the sand. And yet, in this seemingly lifeless wasteland, an ancient civilization created something that defies all logic and reason. The Nazca Lines consist of over 700 massive geoglyphs etched into the desert floor between 500 BCE and 500 CE. These aren't just random scratches in the dirt. We're talking about precise geometric patterns, perfectly straight lines that stretch for up to 30 miles without deviation, and enormous figures of animals, plants, and humanoid beings that can only be fully appreciated from hundreds of feet in the air. Think about that for a moment. How do you create a perfectly proportioned drawing that's 1,200 feet long when you can't see what you're doing? How do you maintain mathematical precision across distances that would challenge modern surveying equipment? How do you coordinate hundreds of workers to create something that no one on the ground could ever see completed? The numbers alone are staggering. The combined length of all the lines exceeds 800 miles. The entire complex covers an area of about 50 square miles. Some individual figures are larger than 3 football fields placed end to end. And every single one was created by carefully removing the dark surface stones to reveal lighter-colored earth beneath a process requiring millions of precisely calculated movements across decades of continuous work. But here's where things get truly bizarre. The Nazca people who created these masterpieces had no written language that we know of. They had no wheels, no iron tools, no domesticated animals larger than llamas. According to mainstream archaeology, they were a relatively simple agricultural society, struggling to survive in one of the harshest environments on Earth. So how did they pull off what many consider to be the greatest feat of prehistoric engineering in the Americas? This is where the theories start getting wild, and trust me, we haven't even scratched the surface yet. In 1968, a Swiss writer named Erich von Däniken published a book that would change everything. Chariots of the Gods proposed something that mainstream academia considered absolutely insane, that the Nazca Lines were created as landing strips and navigational aids for ancient extraterrestrial visitors. Von Däniken looked at aerial photographs of the lines and saw what he believed were unmistakable runways. The longer, wider lines appeared perfectly suited for spacecraft landings. The animal figures looked like messages or signals designed to be read from above, and the precision of the construction seemed to require technology and aerial perspective that ancient peoples simply couldn't possess. His theory gained massive popularity, spawning documentaries, books, and decades of speculation about ancient astronauts visiting Earth. The logic seemed compelling. If these images can only be properly viewed from the air, and if the ancient Nazca had no flying machines, then who were they creating these messages for? The ancient alien theory suggests that extraterrestrial visitors arrived in Peru thousands of years ago, sharing advanced knowledge with local populations. According to this hypothesis, the Nazca people witnessed these spacecraft operations and, after their alien teachers departed, created the lines as a desperate attempt to call them back. The enormous figures were like ancient calling cards, messages saying, "We're still here, please return." It's a captivating theory, and for millions of people worldwide, it remains the most logical explanation for what they see in the Nazca Desert. But before you start scanning the skies for UFOs, let me introduce you to some recent discoveries that completely changed the game. Remember that AI breakthrough I mentioned? In 2024, researchers used artificial intelligence to scan the entire Nazca region, uncovering 303 new geoglyphs in just 6 months. But here's the kicker: these new discoveries reveal something that alien theorists never expected. The AI analysis revealed 2 completely different types of geoglyphs serving entirely different purposes. Large line-type figures, the ones visible from great heights, appear to be connected to ceremonial pathways leading to religious sites. But smaller relief-type figures were found along ancient footpaths, positioned where small groups of travelers would encounter them during journeys. This suggests something revolutionary. The Nazca Lines weren't just mysterious messages to the sky. They were a sophisticated communication and navigation system designed for human use. Among these new discoveries is that 72-foot killer whale holding a knife that I mentioned earlier. This isn't just random ancient art. Archaeological evidence shows that orcas with knives appear throughout Nazca pottery and textiles, always associated with human sacrifice rituals and water ceremonies. The whale was positioned near an ancient footpath, serving as what researchers believe was a spiritual waypoint for pilgrims traveling to sacred sites. It's not a message to aliens, it's a religious marker for human worshippers making dangerous journeys across the desert. But this raises an even more intriguing question. If the Nazca weren't trying to communicate with extraterrestrials, then why did they create images that can only be fully appreciated from the air? What were they really trying to accomplish? The answer lies in understanding who the Nazca people actually were. And let me tell you, they were far more sophisticated than anyone ever imagined. The Nazca civilization flourished between 200 BCE and 600 CE in one of the most challenging environments humans have ever attempted to inhabit. With virtually no rainfall and temperatures that could kill unprepared travelers, survival required engineering solutions that bordered on miraculous. And that's exactly what they achieved. The Nazca developed underground aqueduct systems so advanced that many are still functional today, over 1,500 years later. These weren't simple irrigation ditches, they were complex hydraulic networks that tapped into underground water sources and distributed them across vast agricultural areas. The engineering required to design, construct, and maintain these systems demanded mathematical precision, geological knowledge, and organizational capabilities that rival modern construction projects. Their capital city of Cahuachi wasn't just a settlement, it was a massive ceremonial complex covering over 2 square miles, featuring more than 40 pyramids and temple mounds. The construction required coordinating thousands of workers across multiple generations, moving millions of tons of earth and stone without wheels or large domesticated animals. But here's what makes the Nazca truly extraordinary. They didn't just survive in the desert, they thrived there for over 800 years. And the secret to their success lies in understanding what the lines really represent. The key to understanding the Nazca Lines isn't found in the sky, it's found in the ground beneath your feet. Recent archaeological evidence reveals that the Nazca people were obsessed with water for one simple reason. Their survival depended on it. In a region where a single year without rain could mean the death of an entire civilization, water wasn't just important, it was sacred. It was life itself. And this is where the true purpose of the Nazca Lines finally begins to make sense. The straight lines and geometric patterns weren't runways for alien spacecraft. They were ceremonial pathways leading to water rituals designed to ensure the survival of their people. The animal figures weren't messages to extraterrestrials, they were powerful religious symbols directly connected to Andean beliefs about rain, fertility, and agricultural abundance. Take the spider figures, for example. In Andean culture, spiders are considered harbingers of rain. The monkey designs? They represent the Amazon rainforest, a region associated with abundant water. The hummingbirds symbolize fertility and successful harvests. Every single animal depicted in the Nazca Lines connects to their desperate need for water in an environment that offered almost none. But here's where things get really interesting. The Nazca didn't just create these lines randomly across the desert. They positioned them with surgical precision to serve multiple interconnected purposes that reveal a level of planning and organization that challenges everything we thought we knew about ancient civilizations. The large ceremonial lines point toward water sources, sacred sites, and astronomical events connected to their agricultural calendar. During specific times of the year, thousands of people would walk these pathways in massive religious processions, carrying offerings to the gods and participating in complex rituals designed to ensure adequate rainfall and successful crops. But the smaller relief-type figures served an entirely different function. These intricate designs were positioned along informal footpaths like ancient billboards, communicating essential information to travelers moving across the desert. They marked safe routes, indicated the locations of water sources, and provided directions to religious sites. Think of it as an ancient GPS system, but instead of satellites, they used religious iconography and cultural symbols that every Nazca person could read and understand. A traveler walking across the desert could follow these markers, knowing they were on a safe path that would lead them to their destination. This dual-purpose system reveals something extraordinary about Nazca society. They didn't just build monuments, they created an integrated network of communication, navigation, and religious expression that operated at multiple social levels simultaneously. It was like having both interstate highways and local street signs, all rolled into one massive desert-spanning system. But creating something this complex required organizational capabilities that go far beyond what mainstream archaeology has traditionally attributed to ancient South American civilizations. To understand the true scope of what the Nazca achieved, you need to imagine coordinating a construction project that spans 50 square miles, involves hundreds of workers, and takes centuries to complete, all without written language, modern communication systems, or mechanical tools. Every line had to be planned in advance. Every figure required mathematical calculations to ensure proper proportions. Every pathway needed to connect logically with the overall network. The level of project management required would challenge modern construction companies with computers, GPS, and instant communication. Yet somehow, using nothing but rope, wooden stakes, and human labor, the Nazca pulled it off. They created a masterpiece of engineering and artistic expression that has survived for over 2,000 years in one of the harshest environments on Earth. And they did it all while maintaining a sophisticated society that included advanced pottery, intricate textiles, complex religious practices, and agricultural systems that supported tens of thousands of people in a region where survival should have been impossible. This wasn't the work of primitive people receiving help from alien visitors. This was the achievement of a brilliant civilization that developed innovative solutions to extreme environmental challenges through human ingenuity, determination, and generations of accumulated knowledge. But if the Nazca were capable of such remarkable achievements, why did their civilization suddenly collapse? Why did they abandon their great ceremonial center of Cahuachi? And why did the creation of new geoglyphs actually increase during the final years before their society disappeared? The answers to these questions reveal a tragic irony that connects the ancient Nazca to our modern world in ways that will send chills down your spine. Between 540 and 610 CE, the Nazca region was struck by prolonged droughts, unlike anything the civilization had experienced before. These weren't ordinary dry periods. They were climate catastrophes that lasted decades, destroying the agricultural systems that had sustained their society for 8 centuries. Archaeological evidence shows that, as the crisis deepened, the Nazca increased their religious activities dramatically. They created more geoglyphs, expanded their ceremonial complexes, and intensified their water rituals. The desperation is visible in the archaeological record, a civilization pouring all of its remaining resources into increasingly elaborate attempts to call down rain from an indifferent sky. But the rains never came. The underground aqueduct systems that had sustained them for generations began to fail as water tables dropped beyond reach. Agricultural fields turned to dust. The population centers that had thrived for centuries were gradually abandoned as people scattered in search of survival. By 750 CE, the great Nazca civilization had collapsed completely, leaving behind only their magnificent lines in the desert as testimony to what they had achieved and what they had lost. The irony is heartbreaking. The same climate change that threatens the preservation of the Nazca Lines today contributed to the destruction of the civilization that created them. The Nazca people, who had mastered survival in one of the world's most challenging environments, were ultimately defeated by environmental forces beyond their control. But their legacy raises profound questions about human capability, environmental adaptation, and the true achievements of ancient civilizations. If the Nazca could accomplish such remarkable feats using only Stone Age technology and human determination, what does that tell us about the potential of human ingenuity when faced with seemingly impossible challenges? And if they could create something this magnificent without alien assistance, what other impossible achievements throughout ancient history might actually be testament to human brilliance rather than extraterrestrial intervention? The story of the Nazca Lines isn't just about mysterious drawings in the desert. It's about recognizing the extraordinary capabilities of our own species, understanding how ancient peoples adapted to extreme environments, and appreciating the sophisticated solutions they developed to challenges that would test even modern civilization. But there's still one more piece of this puzzle that we need to examine. Because while the evidence strongly supports human creation of the Nazca Lines, there are still aspects of this mystery that don't quite add up. Details that continue to puzzle archaeologists and fuel ongoing debate about what really happened in that desert 2,000 years ago. The construction techniques alone should have made the Nazca Lines impossible to create with ancient technology. Yet, here they are, staring back at us from satellite images, with a precision that would make modern surveyors weep with envy. Let me paint you a picture of what creating just one of these figures would have required. Take the famous Nazca spider, which measures over 150 feet from leg to leg. To create this figure with perfect proportions, ancient workers would have needed to maintain mathematical precision across an area larger than a football field while working at ground level, unable to see their overall progress. Modern archaeologists have attempted to recreate Nazca techniques using only tools available to ancient peoples. The results are humbling. Even with careful planning, rope grids, and teams of experienced researchers, creating a simple geometric pattern covering just a few hundred square feet requires days of painstaking work and constant correction. Now multiply that challenge by the hundreds of figures scattered across the Nazca Desert, many of them exponentially larger and more complex than anything modern teams have attempted to recreate. We're talking about a construction project that would have required thousands of workers, operating with machine-like precision for generations. But here's where things get really strange. Analysis of the construction sites reveals something that doesn't quite fit the narrative of gradual human development. The earliest Nazca geoglyphs show the same level of sophisticated planning and execution as the later ones. There's no learning curve, no evidence of trial and error, no progression from simple to complex designs. It's as if the Nazca people suddenly possessed fully developed knowledge of large-scale construction techniques, mathematical principles, and organizational systems that appeared out of nowhere in the archaeological record. Where did this knowledge come from? How did they leap from simple agricultural communities to master engineers capable of executing projects that challenge modern capabilities? The mystery deepens when you examine the tools they supposedly used. The Nazca had no iron implements, no advanced measuring devices, no mechanical advantage systems. They created these masterpieces using nothing but wooden stakes, rope, and human muscle power. It would be like asking someone to build a skyscraper using only hand tools and basic mathematics. Yet somehow, they achieved a level of precision that NASA uses as a benchmark for satellite imagery calibration. The straight lines deviate less than 9 feet over distances exceeding 5 miles. The geometric patterns maintain perfect symmetry across areas covering hundreds of acres. The animal figures display anatomical accuracy that suggests intimate knowledge of species behavior and physiology. This isn't just impressive for ancient peoples. This level of execution would be challenging for modern construction teams with laser guidance systems and GPS technology. And then there's the question that no one likes to discuss openly. How did the Nazca people know what their creations looked like from above? Every single figure in the Nazca Lines demonstrates an understanding of aerial perspective that shouldn't have existed in pre-Columbian America. The proportions are perfect when viewed from aircraft altitude, but completely distorted when seen from ground level. The designers clearly had some method of visualizing their work from a bird's-eye view. Some researchers suggest they used large-scale models or climbed nearby hills to check their progress. But the nearest elevated viewpoints are miles away from most geoglyphs, and even from those positions, the figures appear as indistinct smudges rather than recognizable shapes. The true aerial perspective that reveals the line's beauty and precision requires viewing from heights that were supposedly impossible for ancient peoples to achieve. This has led some researchers to propose that the Nazca developed primitive hot air balloon technology using the natural fibers available in their region. They point to fabric remnants and pottery designs that might represent balloon-like objects. But no definitive physical evidence of such devices has ever been found, and the logistics of using balloons for construction oversight would have been staggeringly complex. Others suggest the Nazca used mathematical principles and scaling techniques that allowed them to create aerial perspective art without ever leaving the ground. But this would have required knowledge of geometry, trigonometry, and proportional mathematics that supposedly didn't exist in the Americas for another 1,000 years. The more you dig into the technical challenges, the more the Nazca Lines seem to exist in a category all their own, too advanced for their time, too complex for their technology, too perfect for their supposed construction methods. But wait, because there's something else that makes this mystery even more perplexing. The Nazca Lines aren't alone. Similar geoglyphs have been discovered across South America, from the Atacama Desert in Chile to the Amazon rainforest in Brazil. Each site displays the same characteristics: massive scale, mathematical precision, and designs that can only be properly appreciated from above. It's as if an entire continent possessed knowledge of large-scale ground art construction that appeared simultaneously across cultures that had minimal contact with each other. The Blythe intaglios in California show remarkably similar construction techniques. The Sajama lines in Bolivia display even greater complexity and scale than Nazca. Aboriginal song lines in Australia follow similar patterns of ground-based astronomical and navigational marking. Everywhere you look, ancient peoples were creating massive ground designs using techniques that seem far beyond their supposed technological capabilities. This pattern suggests either an unknown level of cultural exchange between ancient civilizations separated by thousands of miles, or the existence of knowledge systems that were far more advanced and widespread than mainstream archaeology acknowledges. Recent discoveries using ground-penetrating radar and satellite analysis have revealed that many of these sites are connected by underground water systems, astronomical alignments, and geological features that suggest coordinated planning across continental scales. We're not looking at isolated examples of ancient art, we're looking at evidence of continent-spanning engineering projects that required knowledge of geology, astronomy, hydrology, and mathematics that rivals modern scientific understanding. And here's the part that really keeps researchers awake at night. Radiocarbon dating shows that many of these sites were created during the same general time period, despite being separated by thousands of miles and supposedly isolated cultures. How do you explain simultaneous development of identical techniques across an entire continent? The conventional explanation is that these similarities result from parallel development in different cultures independently discovering similar solutions to similar challenges. But the technical precision and scale of these projects suggest knowledge systems that go far beyond simple trial and error or accidental discovery. We're looking at evidence of coordinated knowledge, shared techniques, and communication networks that existed across the ancient Americas at a level that challenges everything we thought we knew about pre-Columbian civilizations. But before you start thinking this supports the ancient alien theory, let me show you what recent discoveries are revealing about the true capabilities of indigenous American civilizations. Because what we're learning is far more extraordinary than any extraterrestrial intervention theory ever suggested. The Amazon rainforest, long considered pristine wilderness, is revealing itself to be the site of massive, ancient civilizations that supported populations in the millions. LIDAR technology has uncovered extensive urban complexes, sophisticated agricultural systems, and engineering projects that dwarf anything in the old world. These weren't simple tribal societies living in harmony with nature. They were advanced civilizations that terraformed entire ecosystems, created artificial islands, built complex water management systems, and developed sustainable agricultural techniques that supported population densities exceeding those of medieval Europe. The ancestral Puebloans of the American Southwest constructed buildings and communities that required knowledge of astronomy, engineering, and resource management that sustained populations for over 1,000 years in harsh desert environments. Their constructions show the same mathematical precision and large-scale planning evident in the Nazca Lines. The mound-building cultures of North America created earthworks that span hundreds of miles, demonstrate sophisticated astronomical knowledge, and required organizational capabilities that could coordinate labor across multiple generations. Recent analysis shows these cultures possessed mathematical and engineering knowledge that rivals classical civilizations. What we're discovering is that the indigenous peoples of the Americas weren't primitive societies struggling to survive in a harsh environment. They were sophisticated civilizations that developed technologies, knowledge systems, and organizational structures perfectly adapted to their environments and capable of achievements that seem impossible by conventional standards. The Nazca Lines aren't evidence of alien intervention, they're evidence that we've completely underestimated the capabilities of ancient American civilizations. These peoples developed solutions to environmental challenges that were so elegant, so perfectly adapted to their specific conditions, that they seem almost supernatural to us today. But this realization creates an even deeper mystery. If ancient Americans were capable of such remarkable achievements, why did so much of this knowledge disappear? What happened to the civilizations that created these wonders? And why do we know so little about cultures that were clearly among the most sophisticated in human history? The answers to these questions reveal a story of environmental catastrophe, cultural destruction, and lost knowledge that connects the ancient past to our modern world in ways that will fundamentally change how you think about human civilization, environmental adaptation, and the true cost of forgetting our own history. The collapse of the Nazca civilization wasn't just an isolated tragedy. It was part of a pattern that swept across the Americas like a slow-moving apocalypse. Between 500 and 1000 CE, advanced civilizations throughout the continent began experiencing simultaneous crises that would reshape the entire New World. The Maya cities were abandoned. The ancestral Puebloan communities in the American Southwest suddenly disappeared from their cliff dwellings. The mound-building cultures of North America went silent. Advanced societies that had thrived for centuries simply vanished, leaving behind only their monuments as testimony to what had been lost. What caused this continent-wide collapse? The evidence points to a perfect storm of environmental disasters that tested every civilization to its breaking point. Massive droughts, volcanic eruptions, and climate shifts created conditions that even the most advanced ancient societies couldn't overcome. But here's what makes this story even more tragic. Many of these civilizations possessed knowledge that could have helped them adapt to changing conditions. They understood astronomy well enough to predict celestial events centuries in advance. They had developed agricultural techniques that sustained massive populations in challenging environments. They possessed engineering capabilities that created structures lasting thousands of years. Yet somehow, this accumulated wisdom wasn't enough to save them when the environment turned hostile. The question haunting modern researchers is whether these civilizations actually forgot crucial survival knowledge or whether external forces prevented them from using what they knew. Recent archaeological evidence suggests that many indigenous communities continued to possess fragments of ancient knowledge long after their major ceremonial centers were abandoned. Oral traditions preserved astronomical calculations, agricultural techniques, and construction methods that had sustained their ancestors for generations. But the arrival of European colonizers in the 15th and 16th centuries accelerated the loss of this knowledge at a catastrophic rate. Diseases wiped out up to 90% of the indigenous population. Forced conversions destroyed religious practices that preserved technical knowledge. Colonial authorities systematically destroyed libraries, codices, and cultural artifacts that contained centuries of accumulated wisdom. The Spanish conquistadors who encountered the remnants of these civilizations couldn't comprehend what they were seeing. To them, the massive earthworks, precise astronomical alignments, and sophisticated engineering projects were either the work of devils or evidence that indigenous peoples had received help from outside sources. This cultural blindness led to the destruction of knowledge systems that had taken millennia to develop. Imagine if aliens arrived on Earth tomorrow and decided that all human technology was demonic, then systematically destroyed every computer, every book, every piece of scientific equipment, while killing 90% of the population. That's essentially what happened to the indigenous civilizations of the Americas. The tragic irony is that many of the techniques developed by these ancient peoples are exactly what modern civilization needs to address current environmental challenges. The Nazca's understanding of desert hydrology could help us manage water resources in arid regions. Ancient American agricultural techniques could provide sustainable solutions to feeding growing populations. Indigenous knowledge of climate patterns could improve our ability to predict and adapt to environmental changes. Instead, we're left trying to reverse engineer solutions that were perfected thousands of years ago by civilizations we're only now beginning to understand. This Nazca Lines. Are we looking at evidence of human brings us back to the fundamental question about the genius, or something else entirely. The ancient alien theory persists not because of compelling evidence for extraterrestrial intervention, but because we've systematically underestimated what human civilizations are capable of achieving. When mainstream archaeology insists that ancient peoples couldn't have possessed advanced knowledge, and then we discover evidence of precisely that knowledge, the alien explanation fills the gap created by academic stubbornness. But there's a deeper problem with the ancient astronaut hypothesis that its proponents rarely acknowledge. If extraterrestrial visitors really did share advanced technology with ancient peoples, why did they choose such inefficient methods? Think about it logically. If you're an advanced alien civilization capable of interstellar travel, why would you help humans create massive ground drawings using rope and wooden stakes? Why not share metallurgy, writing systems, or mechanical tools that would actually improve their quality of life? Why focus on creating images visible from aircraft when the people you're supposedly helping have no aircraft to see them from? The ancient alien theory requires us to believe that extraterrestrial visitors were simultaneously advanced enough to traverse the galaxy and primitive enough to communicate through giant pictures in the dirt. It suggests they possessed technology capable of traveling between star systems, but chose to express themselves through methods that required millions of hours of human labor using Stone Age tools. None of this makes logical sense when you examine it critically. But you know what does make sense? Human beings developing sophisticated solutions to environmental challenges using the materials and knowledge available to them, then passing those techniques down through generations until they became so refined that they seem almost magical to us today. The Nazca Lines represent the pinnacle of human adaptation to extreme environments. They demonstrate organizational capabilities, mathematical knowledge, and artistic vision that emerged from centuries of accumulated wisdom and practical experience. They show us what's possible when human communities work together across generations to create something lasting and meaningful. So where does that leave us standing in the shadow of this ancient mystery? The Nazca Lines force us to confront an uncomfortable truth about ourselves and our understanding of human potential. We've spent so long looking up at the stars for answers that we forgot to look down at the ground beneath our feet, where the real evidence of human genius has been waiting patiently for us to finally open our eyes. The choice is yours. You can keep believing that our ancestors were primitive peoples who needed extraterrestrial assistance to achieve greatness. Or you can accept the far more extraordinary truth that human beings, armed with nothing but determination, ingenuity, and generations of accumulated wisdom, are capable of creating wonders that still take our breath away 2,000 years later. The Nazca Lines aren't evidence of ancient aliens. They're evidence of something far more powerful and far more inspiring. They're proof that when human beings work together toward a common goal, when they refuse to accept the limitations others place upon them, when they dare to dream bigger than anyone thinks possible, they can quite literally move mountains and reshape the world itself. And if our ancestors could accomplish all of this with rope and wooden stakes, imagine what we might achieve if we finally started believing in ourselves the way they believed in their impossible vision carved into an endless desert. The mystery isn't what the Nazca people were trying to tell the sky. The mystery is what they're still trying to tell us.